you've reached peak couple energy when your undies match. MeUndies Match Me has you both covered, literally, in super soft ultra-modal undies, socks, PJs, and loungewear. Festive prints? Check. Cozy vibes? Double check. And right now, it's deal season. Get up to 50% off site-wide for Black Friday and Cyber Monday. Take your couple game to the next level with MeUndies Match Me. To get deals up to 50% off, go to MeUndies.com/comfort, promo code COMFORT. That's MeUndies.com/comfort, code COMFORT.
Welcome to the Get Real Movies podcast. My name is Daniel Chadwick Schubert. I am your host, and this is episode 27, where we will be talking about the new release, Blue Moon. As always, when I'm not interviewing someone, and even sometimes when I am interviewing someone, Mason will be joining me as my lovely co-host, and it is wonderful to welcome you back, sir. Welcome.
It is great to be back. Thanks for having me. And I don't blame you for not bringing me around when there are other people on the line. I understand it's kind of like letting the rabid dog out of the cage. You can't be too careful with that.
Yeah. I just have to be a little careful who I introduce you to. We had a wonderful interview with Shoddy Barsh, but we might have scared her off a little bit as well. So I thought
I had fun with her.
I thought I'd wait until the next interview. I thought I'd wait until the next historian to maybe bring you on. But then I decided to do that without you as well, because I talked to the historian who wrote the book behind Nuremberg, which will be one of our next episodes. But I promise the next historian I will bring you on for that guy or that woman. Anyways, Mason, it has been a while. The last time I talked to you was previewing the Toronto International Film Festival, and I've seen quite a few movies since then. So I will let you, as always, lead us off with some of the films that you've been watching that you might want to recommend to the audience.
Thank you. So I've got two for right now, and I know that we're going to talk about one of them later, but I do want to give a special shout out to Weapons, which I know a lot of people have already seen, and I'm a bit behind the curve here. But goodness gracious, what a great horror film. It's not even that terrifying, but what sets it apart is just the sheer quality of direction. Like, this is like David Fincher level of direction, and I don't say that lightly. But it's just consistently engrossing and keeping you in the vibes of what it's trying to tell you. And I cannot recommend it enough. So, Weapons for the win. And if I was to put on something for TV, again, I'm behind the curve, but I've recently got into Dark. And if you can get past the German subtitles, then it's very much worth a Netflix subscription to check out the mind-melding world of Dark. It's kind of like a rated R Stranger Things. Highly recommend.
Yeah, and it probably doesn't take 5 years between seasons either.
Yeah,
maybe that's definitely one worth seeing.
Yeah, these 15-year-old kids are like 30 by now, yeah.
Well, hey, if it didn't stop Glee, it doesn't stop Stranger Things, I guess.
Or Harry Potter, yeah.
Or Harry Potter, exactly. Although they did that pretty quickly. I am proud of them for that.
True.
I will say, though, Weapons I saw in theaters, and I was blown away. I'm not a horror fan. Anyone who's been listening to the podcast for a while knows the most I can usually put up with is a psychological thriller. But Weapons was one film that I did truly find quite phenomenal. It was a little scary at times, but nothing too crazy. But I think it was just the expert direction and cinematography. And I heard there were a few other actors attached to it originally, and then they all got replaced because of the strikes. And I'm so glad they did, because I can't imagine really anyone else in the roles that Josh Brolin had. And I always think of her as Ruth from Ozark, but Julia Garner was fantastic as well. So, and Benedict Wong. Whoa. Benedict Wong. I won't spoil anything, but
yeah, he's a odd sort in that one.
Just a little bit, but we won't spoil it for people. But definitely highly recommend that. In terms of films that I want to recommend, one is a film that I saw at TIFF, and that's Roofman. It just came out in theaters this past weekend, right before Blue Moon came out, and all the TIFF films are really coming out now, so it's great to see. But Roofman was one of my favorite films of the festival. I thought it was a career best turn by Channing Tatum. This is one of Derek Cianfrance's more mature offerings that I've seen. I'm a huge fan of Blue Valentine and The Place Beyond the Pines. I think he is one of those directors that is really under the radar for a lot of people. But I think this is definitely his most mainstream film, but it's also his most heartwarming film and one of his more beautiful films as well. I think there's maybe nothing as much to write home about when it comes to cinematography in this film, but I think the script and the acting and the directing all sort of supersede some of his previous entries. And I think this is probably going to be one of my favorite films towards the end of the year. I'm excited to do our end of the year list when they do come up. But I highly recommend, if people want to see a good adult dramedy with just wonderful performances throughout and great directing and acting, or great directing and writing, then I highly recommend going to see this film. I really loved it. In terms of the other film I wanted to recommend, that is a film that we were both going to talk about a little bit, and that's One Battle After Another. I'm still walking like Sean Penn a little bit, and it's been 2 weeks since I've seen the film now, so I probably need to start chilling out on that. But other than that, I think I have my Halloween costume sorted. I definitely want to be Bob Ferguson. And
Really?
I
Okay.
might be having a few small beers on Halloween. So for all the people who saw One Battle After Another, that was a lot of references for you. But Mason, what did you think of the film? Because I really enjoyed it, and the more I think about it, the more I like it.
I never thought I would be stressed out by the ups and downs of a highway. Never was on my bingo card, but this movie achieves that and so many other things, from being both super stressful and almost like a very laid back comedy at the same time. It's like if The Big Lebowski and Gone Girl like had a baby and came out with this really weird Paul Thomas Anderson freaky baby. I think great performances overall, especially from Sean Penn, who, I mean, say what you will about Sean Penn, but I think he really knocked it out of the park with his kind of crazed soldier of what in his mind is vengeance and justice. But Leonardo DiCaprio obviously can do no wrong in my mind as well. And the writing itself is just fantastic. It's somehow very political and at the same time apolitical. There's a lot of weird compromising forces that shouldn't work in the same movie, yet somehow they do. It's obviously trying to say a message, but what you take from it very much is up to you. And I think that's very hard to get by, especially these days. So, I mean, really props all around for all performances, the writing, the direction. I mean, it's just absolutely fantastic. Very heavy contender for this year's award season.
Yeah, I have no doubt. I think Sean Penn does a really good job here, and I wouldn't be surprised if he was in some of the conversations for Best Supporting Actor. I truly enjoyed the film. I thought Benicio del Toro was, for me, the shining star of the film.
Really?
I just loved it. Yeah, I loved every moment he was in it, and I also think in terms of PTA, Paul Thomas Anderson, I think this is definitely his most accessible film since There Will Be Blood. And I
agree
think
with that.
maybe there's an argument to be made that it is his most accessible film ever. Because he does some strange things with his films that some people love and some people hate, and that's okay. And that's why I like him, because he takes a lot of risks. But I think that this film, I know it's not doing as great as people want at the box office, but it's also a 3-hour R-rated original film, and it has some serious star power behind it, but sometimes it's hard to get butts in the seats for that. So I think that this film definitely should have been made, and I'm glad it was, and I really enjoyed it. And at first I was a little bit more muted about it than I thought I would be. I was thinking about it, and I thought it might be a few days before I was able to really figure out what I thought about the film. I think, considering every time I drive on a road that has multiple hills on it and I put on One Battle After Another's soundtrack, Johnny Greenwood, I think this film is obviously one that I quite enjoyed and that's going to stick with me. So I am glad to recommend it to our audience.
I think I read that this is actually the highest performing, or one of the highest performing PTA movies ever. Like I know There Will Be Blood is probably his magnum opus, but I think this one has gotten the most revenue overall, which is great to see.
Yeah. Yeah, it also costs a lot more, though, to be fair, but
that's true.
I'm glad they made it. And it was made in VistaVision, which I think is really cool. Sadly, I don't live in any of the cities that can show a film in VistaVision, but that's okay. You know, one day.
There's one in
day I'll be
DC,
near
but
a
I
cinema.
admit I have not seen it in that. I went to go see the more accessible regular film version.
Yeah, for sure. But Mason, we've talked about our recommendations, but I think it's now time that we get into our review, and that is of Blue Moon, which is coming out on Friday. By the time this releases on Monday, it'll have been the opening weekend, so I'm hoping it's making lots of money. But we were very excited to see this film. We got a screener from the wonderful people at Mongrel Media and Sony Classics, so shout out to them.
Thank you, Sony Classics and Mongrel Media.
A little sneak peek. Yes, Mason always loves thanking them. And
I appreciate the vibes. I appreciate the gift.
Yes, yes, indeed. But Mason, before we get into the nitty gritty of it, just give me your general impressions of the film. What did you know about it going in, and what were your thoughts coming out?
So, what did I know about it going in? I knew extremely little. I knew that the film dealt with Lorenz Hart, who was a big worker with the the Rodgers and Hart Broadway songwriting team, but that was nowhere really on my radar. I mean, I have heard of him before, and I've heard the song Blue Moon before, primarily from Fallout New Vegas. And so I had to do a little bit of research to discover a little bit more about who he was. I knew Ethan Hawke starred in it, and that was about it. So what are my overall vibes? You said that you hope this movie makes a lot of money. I'll make some spoilers here and say that I think this movie was excellent, but there's no way this is going to make a lot of money because it is a artistic character study that is of a very niche individual that, again, some hardcore musical history people will, I'm sure, be all over. But the general public, I don't see flocking to this one, which is really a shame because Ethan Hawke just absolutely nails this. I cannot stress enough how much he's knocked it out of the park. And he's always been an accomplished actor, but holy cow, this is an absolute vehicle for Ethan Hawke in showcasing his complete range, what he can do. It reminds me a lot of Capote in the turn that we had there, again, with that character study and just the absolute transformation of a well-known actor, Philip Seymour Hoffman. I really think that this is showcasing so much of what Ethan Hawke is familiar or able to perform with. And what's even more incredible is that this is releasing side by side with his other film, Black Phone 2, which is a very, very, very different film for him. And he nails both sides of that. So I highly appreciate what was done here. I am already somewhat saddened by what I'm pretty sure will be a disappointing box office return, but I'm glad that they made this regardless.
Yeah, and I think this was one of those pieces, I hope it does well because I do really appreciate the art. And I think, Mason, you know this better than anyone. I eat up any talkie movie that's set in one location. Reservoir Dogs, The Hateful Eight, Birdman. It's just my bread and butter, and it's what I love watching. And as much as Ethan Hawke's height is very distracting in this film, and maybe we'll talk about that a little later, I do think this film is very much poetry in motion. It's just you watch it and you can't help but smile a little bit, especially when Ethan Hawke gets cooking and he's going in one of his monologues, and you just can't help but sit there and smile a little bit. And as much as Lawrence Hart, who he plays, is kind of praised a few times during the film as this great listener, the times that I really listened and really got into it was when he was talking and when he was waxing lyrical about all his famous musicals and all the wonderful lyrics he wrote and the good times with Richard Rodgers, and then seeing him be a little jealous and this almost depraved way of lying to himself and lying to everyone around him, except for Bobby Cannavale, the only person he tells the truth to that night. And I really enjoyed it. And I think Bobby Cannavale, as I mentioned, I thought he was really good in it too. But you're completely right. This is Ethan Hawke's film, and I have no doubt that he will generate some serious Oscar buzz with it as well. I think that this is very much his vehicle. And there's a reason that him and Linklater waited for 12 years to make this, which Linklater just has a thing with waiting for 12 years. But
he's got to be the most patient director in Hollywood, like first with Boyhood and now with this, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I love him. He's another director anything he does, I'm there for. Everybody Wants Him becomes better and better movie in my mind each year that I watch it, and now I'll watch anything Linklater does. The Before trilogy is something that many people really love, and I think also ages incredibly well and tells such a great story about love. And I think this is very much a story about not only lost love, but it's about what happens when you have friendships that sort of drift away. And it just shows a man who seemingly is dealing with it, but hasn't done a very good job. And Ethan Hawke really encapsulates that very well. And I thought Andrew Scott was quite good as well. His Richard Rogers was the opposite of Ethan Hawke's Lawrence Hart, but they played off each other really well. And it was quite interesting to watch him being slightly uninterested in what Ethan Hawke, about what Lawrence Hart had to say, but still wanting to, be there and be a friend for him and help him out. And that was quite an interesting watch.
It reminded me of when you have an old friend who, used to go out to the bars with, and used to party really hard with, and then, you grow up, you mature, and your life kind of settles down, which is a good thing. And then you see that old friend who's still stuck in what you were doing, and sure, that can be a lot of fun, but you know that you can't really drift back that way, or else things are just not going to go well. I really get that relationship from the two of them here, Richard Rogers and Lawrence. So seeing Andrew Scott kind of play an understated role as Richard Rogers, and seeing Ethan Hawke be the overtly charismatic and talkative and consistent, like you said earlier, Daniel, waxing poetry to his entire audience, it is a very interesting two sides of a coin where you can almost see how well they work together and why they come to conflict as well, because they're obviously such amazing creatives and their styles are so different, and that's their strength in working together despite all the pain that brings. I was consistently enamored with the way that Ethan Hawke delivered every single line of dialogue. Every single one I felt was, it wasn't off the cuff. It wasn't like him feeling it out. He thought through, in my mind, every single line of this script and gave personal meaning behind each line, and then finally let us, the audience, go along the ride with him. There's a part where he is talking about the best line in Casablanca, like, no one ever loved me that much, right? And then when he's later talking to this actress played by Margaret Qualley, who in my mind is the silver medal to Ethan Hawke's gold here, and it's coming because he's enamored with this woman, despite being a possible gay person. He's still enamored with this woman, but she very clearly is like, you and I are probably not on the same wavelength. Like, I love you, just not in that way. And he later says, no one ever loved me that much. And it's coming because you can see it in his eyes. You can see it in his demeanor. And it's just on the tip of his tongue when he's being given this like slight put down. And I just feel so much in his brain with the way that he expresses himself consistently throughout this runtime. For a film that is stuck in one place with a very small cast, with no big explosions or eye-catching moments, it's just people in a bar drinking. It really keeps you captivated the entire time, and that in itself, I mean, really applause all around, from the direction from Linklater to the performances all over. You mentioned Bobby Cannavale. I thought he was the one sticking point for me. Like, he's a great actor as well, and his part was fine. It did feel a bit cliche and just like the classic bartender, like, hey Frank, like let me pour you a shot kind of thing, as he listens to whatever his drunk audience is trying to say, which is fine. Like, cliches exist for a reason because they work, but I didn't ever really feel captivated by what he was saying, because I felt like he was really just a vehicle to get more from Ethan Hawke in his performance. So nothing against that actor, nothing against that role. I just wasn't necessarily able to really wrap my mind around, like, oh, this guy is anything more than a caricature for the remainder of the players.
Well, I think that was the whole point, and that's why I enjoyed him, is because he was there to really just accentuate Ethan Hawke and Lawrence Hart and that character. And he was also there to kind of show the audience that Lawrence Hart had a bit of a problem and that he was there to help. And it seemed like he was the only one that Lawrence Hart actually told the truth to. Whereas in everyone else, he was presenting almost a facade, who he actually was and how he was feeling. And I mean, at the start of the film, it clearly shows that there was a lot more going on inside of Hart than what we could see him presenting to us, the audience, and the rest of the people who were there at the bar celebrating the opening night of Oklahoma. And for people, we haven't really explained that, but this is set on the opening night of Oklahoma, Rodgers and Hammerstein, this huge hit, and Hart is feeling a bit of jealousy, just a tiny bit.
I completely agree with Hart that Oklahoma is severely overrated. I'm from Oklahoma, but I cannot stand that musical personally.
Well, you're allowed that opinion if you're from Oklahoma, I guess. It pains me to say this, but I've not seen the play, but I guess maybe it doesn't pain me to say that if that's how you feel.
Yeah, I personally don't think you're missing that. Instead of movie reviews, let's just do musical reviews from now on. We'll make a huge pivot for this show from now on.
Yeah, get real.
Get real musical.
Get real musicals? No, that doesn't sound good.
No, just like get real
theater.
musical, like get real theater. Okay, but we can workshop it.
Theater. Yeah, we can workshop it. It needs to feature Get Real. That's all I ask.
Okay, we can discuss it.
Yeah, Broadway will give us free tickets, right? And they'll fly me out to review.
Yeah, we might need to lower our expectations on that one.
Okay, you know what? I want to stick to movies, Mason, if that's okay.
Again, we can discuss it.
Okay, sounds good. But Mason, as we always do, instead of our usual out of 5 ratings or out of 10 ratings, what would you say this is? Is this a movie that you want to run to the theater to? Is this an unmissable film? Is this one that people can wait until it hits VOD? Or is this just a skip for you?
All right, so hear me out on this one. I do absolutely believe that people should see this movie. They should run to see this movie. However, I personally would prefer to see it in a cozy home area versus the theater. And here's why. Because this really is a experience that you have to have with yourself, or at least with you and maybe someone close to you, because you need to do a lot of real introspection with this movie. And not to say you can't do that in a theater, but being in your own space, in your comfy zone where you're thinking about nothing except what's happening on screen, I think really is to the benefit of this movie. And so I, again, 100% believe that anybody even slightly interested in the past of musicals or the Rodgers and Hammerstein / Rodgers and Lorenz duos should see it. But I do think that being in your comfy place is the primary way to do so.
Okay, no, that's not a controversial take. And I think it's a weird world now where I sometimes enjoy watching films at home more than I do in the theaters. And 18-year-old Dan would punch 27-year-old Dan right now. But films are becoming harder to watch in movie theaters, especially ones where you do need to focus. Because I've realized a lot of people, they can't seem to go 2 hours without checking their phone or without talking loudly during the whole thing.
Audiences are getting worse. Like, public audiences are getting noticeably worse. And I don't have any like scientific proof to back that up, but I swear to goodness, it is very noticeable how hard it is to enjoy something that you pay like $20 for now. It's insane.
Well, and movie tickets are much more, and audiences are becoming less focused and have less attention. And I think filmmakers in Hollywood seems to tailor to that rather than the opposite. But it was quite interesting because even at Toronto International Film Festival, people are now allowed to use their computers in press screenings while the movie is playing. Or allowed to be on their phones because, you know, it's working, you're working. And that
bring a notepad and a pencil.
I know, exactly. And that was the thing I always loved about film festivals is that these people at these screenings were film lovers and they loved to be there and watching the films. And even that's changing now because a lot of these film festivals, they're pricing people out, or they're not pricing people out, but Ticketmaster is. It's a sad state, and I'm sure we could go into a long podcast about that. But I would tend to agree. I wouldn't say run to the theater for this one. I would say that it's definitely one that I would watch in theaters. If it was an art house theater or maybe a community theater, always go support your local community theaters,
100%.
Community cinemas, I guess, because we're talking about theater, but we should probably specify. But yeah, I totally agree. If you are not able to watch it locally because it's not playing or it's only on for a week, then definitely still catch this when it comes out on VOD. It's an hour and 40 minutes, but it just whizzes by. And Linklater, he can do no wrong in my mind. One film that I didn't catch that he also did this year was Nouvelle Vague, which is all about the French New Wave of film, and it's all about the making of Breathless, the Jean-Luc Godard film. And so I'm very excited to see that as well. If it's close to as good as this film is, then I will be a very happy camper. So I highly recommend it. Truly enjoyed it. And Mason and I are agreeing again. So hell must have frozen over. And
Indeed.
This means that Mason must love Trap now. Mason?
Do not. How dare you prop up this movie so much and then put it in the same category as Trap? Like, oh, this is a good movie. You know what else reminds me of Blue Moon? Trap. Like, no. You are worse than the people using their laptops in these movie screenings, Dave.
Well, hey, I didn't say that. I just remembered the last time we disagreed, and that was Trap. So
that can't be the last time we disagreed. We disagree all the time.
Well, okay, that was the last time we disagreed vehemently. How about that?
I see.
Big word.
I see. That is a good big word. That would be a Lorenz Hart word. That's it. That's a very poetic word.
Yes, indeed. But Mason, thank you once again for joining me. I know we have a few movies we want to discuss for the rest of the fall season, and I've got some good interviews coming up as well. So I'm excited to share that with everyone. But as always, please lead us out, and I will see you very soon for our next review.
Well, thank you very much. And if you, our wonderful listeners, want to disagree with Daniel vehemently, then maybe leave us a like and subscribe on that Spotify or anywhere else where you get podcasts. Be sure to check out the movie in theaters or in your cozy spot whenever this wonderful piece of poetry waxing is released. But till next time, I've been Mason.
I've been Daniel.
And we'll see you at the movies. Bye, y'all.